And if you haven't seen this footage, I suggest you do. It's truly shocking, by the way. This is the moment when one of the Israeli hostages, Arbel Yehud, is handed over to the Red Cross in Gaza yesterday. Now, if you haven't seen it, it's difficult to describe, but it's hordes of Hamas supporters surrounding the hostage car. A number of armed, I would imagine, Hamas fighters are there wearing, some of them wearing, it would seem, military helmets, all of them wearing balaclavas, most of them wearing dark glasses, showing nothing of their faces. And this poor young woman who's 29, who looks absolutely terrified through the entire ordeal, is effectively paraded through a screaming group of supporters, escorted, as I say, by these members of Hamas. The Israeli Prime Minister has described this as unimaginable cruelty, and you can see, if you watch the video, that she looks absolutely terrified, understandably. Mr. Netanyahu has gone on to say it's shocking and says whoever dares to harm our hostages will pay the price. This is further proof of the unimaginable cruelty of the Hamas terrorist organisation. Let's bring into the conversation David Mencer, who's Israeli government spokesman in the office of the Prime Minister, joining me now. As and when you witnessed the scenes, what went through your mind, Mr. Mencer? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Truly savage parade as Arbel Yehuda, 29-year-old Israeli girl stolen from her home and then surrounded by these terrorists. It's just an outrage to see. Look, I watched it actually on the BBC because I'm talking obviously a lot on the international media, the BBC in particular. Now, look, Hamas and Islamic Jihad are designated terrorist organizations in the UK, in the US, in the UAE, and in many other democratic nations. Their charter calls for the annihilation of my country. They deliberately target civilians in mass murder operations. So why on earth does the BBC refuse to call Hamas what the UK government itself designates them? They are terrorists. Would the BBC hesitate to call ISIS a terrorist organization? Why does Hamas, which has beheaded our people, has raped our women, gets a different treatment? Is it because the BBC is comfortable with whitewashing this
Mr. Mencer, those are questions I can't answer. You'd have to put to the BBC. If we can return to events yesterday, is it your understanding that this sort of practice, this brutality, is commonplace when the hostages are returned, or is this a rare event?
In every single one of the 8 hostages that have been released since the beginning of this hostage release agreement, that's precisely how they have been released. Sometimes more orchestrated, sometimes less. But the images from here in Israel, we wonder how it is that a woman by herself, petrified exactly as you say, there has been not a word this morning from women's rights organizations. Why is that, Nick? That's not a BBC problem. Why is that? Is it because there are too many organizations now, including the BBC, that are happy to whitewash this organization that killed 1,200 of our people on October 7th, including entire families, babies and Holocaust survivors, by refusing to stand up for women, by refusing to call them terrorists? It's clear to us in Israel that they are suggesting that there is legitimacy in their methods.
Lastly, Mr. Mencer, what is the condition of that young woman and of Gadi Moses, if I'm saying that correctly, the 80-year-old who was also freed yesterday? Mr. Mencer.
Gadi Moses, an 80-year-old, he was also went through the same crowd, hit on the head by kids and taunted. Gadi was held by himself for most of those 482 days, an outrageous crime to humanity, as was Arbel as well. Look, they are clearly euphoric that they are out, that's for sure, but there is a long process ahead in terms of recovery, both physically and psychologically at the same time.
Grateful for your time. David Mencer, Israeli government spokesman, joining us from the office of the Prime Minister.